I would have loved to be with you in person to share my thoughts on sustainable summits, but with the world currently facing unprecedented difficulties because of the coronavirus pandemic, that sadly is not possible. These hardships are amplified in the world's remote areas, such as the mountains of Nepal, where scarce resources are under increased pressure. Healthcare is not always available, and incomes from sectors such as tourism have all but dried up. For example, the cancellation of Everest climbing and trekking in Nepal has devastated the economies of towns that were already having to cope with the impacts of climate change. The melting ice is visible to all, making climbing Everest even more risky and placing the surrounding area at greater risk from glacial lake flooding. The floods have already destroyed farms, businesses, and hydropower stations in the Everest region. The mountain's fragile ecosystems also support some of the world's most iconic and endangered animals, like the snow leopard, the red panda, and more. These ecosystems are under threat from invasive species that are migrating ever upward as temperatures in the mountain areas increase at twice the global average. Coronavirus is the most immediate challenge, but we also know that it is dwarfed by the threat of climate change and environmental destruction. Like coronavirus, these all-encompassing threats demand ambitious, collective action right now. But they're not entirely separate. As countries renew and rebuild their economies following the coronavirus crisis, we have an opportunity to do so in a way that puts resilience and sustainability at their heart. And mountains are vulnerable to climate change, but they also present us with huge opportunities to tackle climate change systemically. The Himalayas provide water to over 1.6 billion people on the South Asian subcontinent alone. What happens in the mountains is of immense importance to us all. Their forests absorb greenhouse gases, reduce landslide and flood risks, and provide habitats for hundreds of rare species. The UK is working with our international partners all around the world to support a sustainable coronavirus recovery, one which recognises that our natural resources are finite and that short-term decisions today at the expense of nature and climate will dump costs on the next generation. As part of this green and resilient recovery, I want to cite 4 principles for sustainable mountain recovery in the context of the coronavirus pandemic. Firstly, investing in resilience. Investments that save lives, help people adapt to climate change, and make good economic sense, such as early warning and response systems, which save over $5 for every $1 spent, and improved water management that reduce risks both from too much and too little water. Secondly, policies that promote job creation in green sectors, such as removal of fossil fuel subsidies and taxes on green imports, replacing them with incentives for electric vehicles, clean cooking that reduce pollution, create jobs, and literally fuel a green recovery. Thirdly, nature-based solutions in the forestry, agricultural, water, resources and ecotourism sectors that can create millions of jobs and drive sustainable growth whilst improving the ecosystems that underpin food security, absorb greenhouse gases, and build communities' resilience to the short and long-term impacts of climate change. Fourth, cooperation is critical. For example, better regional cooperation on water management in the Himalayas, the water tower of Asia that can help over 1 billion people cope better with floods and droughts, or increasing regional energy trade to help South Asia meet its energy demand without increasing emissions. A Green New Deal makes sense everywhere, but especially in the mountains as part of the coronavirus recovery. The UK is developing its plans for putting these principles into action, building on our already world-leading domestic legislation to achieve net zero by 2050 and supporting investments in renewables. We're also proud to have substantially increased the UK's international climate finance spend over the next 5 years, which can be used to support the green recovery. The Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development provide us with globally agreed frameworks for how this green recovery can be delivered, for the generation affected by coronavirus now and for generations that will be affected by climate change in the future. That is why, as part of its COP presidency, the UK is working with initiatives like Sustainable Summits to drive greater climate ambition and action around the world. Thank you very much indeed, and good luck.